What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some quick Destiny 2 news roundups. So in the video we'll touch on some imminent Beyond Light expansion reveals in this final month before launch, some things we'll see over the next few weeks, but also teasers for the seasons of Year 4. We'll talk about thermal scope weapons you can prep for Europa, and just a few of the next gen improvements we'll be seeing moving forward. But otherwise, double loot is coming back. Bungie give us some heads up for festival stuff next week, and we have some other useful shouts and mentions in the video. So guys, as always, if you do enjoy this one, a rating below really helps us out. But now let's get into it. And so let's touch on some of the things we can expect to see over the next few weeks before Beyond Light launches. Something which tends to be pretty revealing are the edge covers for Destiny 2. So turns out there is a Beyond Light edge cover for the magazine in December, but these editions do tend to drop early, a couple of months ahead of time, so it's possible we'll get this one in October. But the edge articles tend to reveal some pretty intriguing stuff, and previously, for vanilla Destiny 2 or any of the big expansions, they've blown open a few things that we haven't really heard about yet, so as soon as we do get any details on this, I'll be sure to keep you posted. And of course, if any of you guys are subscribed to Edge Magazine and get that edition, feel free to get in touch with any juicy info. But also, we are in October, and as Bungie have said, Year 4 beginning in November means there's going to be a lot of conversation this month, and Cosmo clarified again that they are going to talk both sandbox, but also economy stuff over the next few weeks. DMG had previously spoken about weapon previews and stuff like that in October, but of course the economy side is pretty important. Players have also been asking about hoarding bounties and what's going to happen with those. Community managers have said, stay tuned for details about any changes and things worth knowing soon. But DMG also confirmed that the Beyond Light raid launch is redacted, and they're going to talk about it soon, but if you see any dates floating around at the moment, it's purely speculation. As always, stay locked in here on the channel, and we'll have that new info as soon as it's available. Of course, quick shout for Destiny 2 next week though, as well as Festival of the Lost. Double rewards in Nightfall or deals is back, so just like last time, really good opportunity to farm exotics, better rolls on them, enhancement prisms, ascendant shards and all of that kind of stuff. And the featured strike this time is going to be a garden world, so if you want to farm any of those out, in addition to the festival stuff next week on Tuesday, it'll finally be back in the game. But when it comes to festival content, Bungie did give some quick warnings for bugs and stuff, so when inspecting the new Cypher decoder, it can incorrectly display masterworked versions of the Braytech Werewolf and Horror Story auto rifles as potential Haunted Forest cash drops, which essentially confirms they won't drop masterworked, at least in that mode. But also the wrapped and ready Festival of the Lost Triumph refers to the Restless shell as the Mummy Ghost when it should be called the Festival of the Lost Ghost. And then also the lower half of the Warlock Blood Lineage robes is going to experience a visual texture error at the launch of Beyond Light, but the issue will be resolved in a patch soon after release. And so just a couple of things to bear in mind before that launch actually happens. Something interesting to talk about here very briefly. Of course, we are getting updated versions of the Braytech Werewolf and Horror Story auto rifles associated with Festival of the Lost this year. But it turns out if you want to grab an updated one a little bit early, you can pull them from collections at the moment. And what you will get is a collection roll, but updated not to sunset until after Season 15. Also, interestingly enough, when you pull the Horror Story, it does actually give you different scopes every time you grab it from collections. So the bulk of the roll is the same, but you get different sights on the weapon, which is interesting. So you can grab one if you like. However, we're not certain which perks will actually be able to roll on these two weapons, because DMG said, we have found a bug where the API is showing some perks that can't roll on the Horror Story or Braytech Werewolf. So we'll see if we can get an official perk list available next week. Essentially, don't pay attention to what the database is listing for those particular weapons. If they do give us any updates, I'll be sure to keep you posted. And another shout for Europa and Beyond Light is that Braytech Werewolf actually gets a thermal scope. So, as we know, these are going to be pretty useful on Europa with dynamic weather and very low visibility in certain types of weather. And so Braytech Werewolf will have that thermal capacity like the weapons we can see on screen. But Lord Tyrannosaurus also posted to Reddit with a full spreadsheet of weapons that always come with highlighting scopes, and then weapons where you can get them on certain rolls. And it also has weapons which won't sunset until later next year, so you've got things like Reckless Oracle, Zealot's Reward, and Sacred Provenance, but Arsenic Bite, Death Adder, and the 7th Seraph weapons. So if you want a list of potential weapons that could be useful for highlighting enemies on Europa, then I will link that full thread down below. Now, an additional subject of conversation for Beyond Light would of course be the future seasons inside of Year 4. And so based on the image that shows us the various colours for different seasons throughout the year, players are trying to speculate as to what those content drops could be, because Of course, last year, the images that Bungie provided for each of the seasons were kind of a tease to the content theme for that season. So I think it is important to remember that Cosmodrome is seeing updates during Season 13, according to Bungie's most recent conversation, and so that destination will likely be some kind of focus, especially since Europa will be the main destination for November's drop. And the coder and Avatar posted to Reddit that perhaps there's a possibility we could see the Dreaming City as a focus for Season 15. A potential link, of course, with Wish 15 itself. Of course, the curse cycle still existing on the destination, and Bungie cycling content out of the game in future. But either way, for that final drop in Year 4, we see very much a hive green colour, but then jumping back to the second image showing the purple colour, of course behind the season that'll come alongside Beyond Light. It is pretty similar to the callous kind of opulent purple, but also the Awoken, and with speculation about Aldrin and a potential Cosmodrome focus in Season 13, there could be a bit of a link there. Although the season bang in the middle of the year does show a red colour. Not so sure about that one, but of course there are enemies like the Cabal to think about. We'll have to wait and see, but another Year 4 reprise is going to be Vault of Glass, most likely in either Season 14 or 15. And again, how the season roadmap could be influenced by Beyond Light's delay is yet to be seen. It is possible that Season 13 could be pushed back to New Year instead of the typical December drop. And so Year 4 in general is going to be a little bit different, and we have kind of a forecast of a few things that we can expect throughout that year. And so I'd definitely be curious to get any theories from you guys about what content we could see. Now though, let's talk about some of the remaining content this season, and once we're past Festival of the Lost, we will be thinking about the end of season event for Arrivals. And so naturally, in this section of the video we are going to hit some spoiler territory. Take that as the warning, but the main thing we really know a little bit about would be the Calamity Protocol emblem, once again listed as an end of season event reward, and Calamity would suggest a significant kind of disastrous event taking place. Almost certainly linked to the pyramids actually arriving at the destinations going away this year. And that's where we're very curious about the story element and how that'll be delivered. A hint that we have for now comes in the form of a Reddit post from Relic Terra. They posted that when looking through the game's sound files, they did actually find some audio for sirens. So there is some speculation that potentially we could actually have sirens on destinations that are currently under attack, or kind of at the phase where the ultimate evacuation, kind of the end, is happening for those destinations. Something like that does suggest more of a world event of sorts, although we probably should hold out expectations for now. There's no direct proof that anything like that's going to happen. But we do know about other remaining secrets in the Interference mission. A little bit more recently, Dead Pixels shared an image where Nokris actually appeared via a glitch inside of the mission. We can see some kind of Ascendant Knight nearby, but this maybe suggests that we could see Nokris in a couple of different locations during a future mission run. And then JB3 some time back did share that Interference houses a hidden boss staging area, like Court of Oryx from D1, as well as a series of statues admiring the pyramid chips, and of course, once again Nokris. So there is very much a big story component linked to Interference, but of course Calamity Protocol and whether there is actually an event taking place associated with that, or whatever form that takes, right, because we just don't know. It'd be cool to see whether those events are followed by new discoveries in the Interference, or whether events at the Cradle on Io will be the catalyst for the so-called calamity that the emblem talks about. Regardless, we're getting much closer to that ending point of the season, and the final lore card from Eris will be very curious, I think, with big connections to Beyond Light. So if you want to get all of that lore, bear in mind that you can still load up a run and repeatedly trigger the Eris dialogue until you're up to date. Again, any of your thoughts or theories about what's going to happen at the end of the season would be very interesting to read in the comment section. Couple of potentially useful shouts right here, but if you want to pick up the Outbreak or Whisper catalysts before the end of this year, when they may no longer be earnable, Jake DX points out that October 19th is the absolute last reset where you can start the Outbreak and Whisper catalysts with enough time to get them done week over week. So definitely bear that in mind if you want to pick them up. But also, players have been pointing out that if you held on to the Mindbender during the evacuation quest from Zavala, the perks on it actually roll differently every single week in the game. So the original one had Pulse Monitor and Rampage. This one has Accurized Round, Snapshot and Rampage. And apparently every single week they're changing if you're still sitting on that weapon, which is a pretty curious one because we don't really have typical vendor roll refreshes in the game. But obviously that mechanic is doing its thing just like it used to do in Destiny 1 on that particular weapon in the inventory. You could potentially get a really good roll of the Mindbender's Ambition. Could we potentially see vendor weapons in some form with weekly random rolls return in the future? I think there is definitely a hunger for that from the Destiny community, but give us your thoughts in the comment section. A final thing to mention right here, but we've got a bit of information about much faster console load times for the new Xbox Series X. So some new info comes from Tom Warren at The Verge. They compared a bunch of games between the Series X and the Xbox One X. And initially that does include load times, because at the minute they're only able to test the unpatched version of Destiny 2, which of course is being updated in November. And that's when the game will get 60 FPS on the Series X. But regardless of that, in terms of load time, to boot Destiny 2 fully on the Xbox One X takes 1 minute and 52 seconds, which is still a pretty long time. But Series X will be able to do it in 43 seconds, which is much more comparable to what you'd see on PC. They also uploaded a little bit of gameplay, which was 30 FPS, but was interesting to see because all of the menus and things like that are much quicker than on the normal version on an Xbox One X. So performance improvements are very much already there. But also because D2's install size is being reduced by 30 to 40%, they do point out that depending on platform, the new size for Destiny 2, once Beyond Light ships, should be somewhere between around 60 gigabytes and 70 gigabytes. I mean, I would leave a margin of a few percent around those numbers, but gives us kind of an idea of how D2's install overall is actually going to shrink, despite the fact that we'll have to re-download the entire game when that patch actually drops. Bungie did confirm, however, that they'll be dropping that the day before Beyond Light, so hopefully, for most people, it'll be something we'll have time to get downloaded. For today's video though, guys, that's everything we've got to touch on, so I hope you have found it useful as always, and if you have, a rating down below really helps us out. Drop your thoughts about any of the things we've spoken about in the comment section, but also be sure to get subscribed so I can keep you posted with the world of Destiny 2. However, for now, whatever you guys get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.